Good afternoon, Delegate Wranglers. Hope you're all okay. Here we are back again for another DW live show masterclass. Really glad to be here on this sunny day. It was Happy Monday yesterday. Wow. So things are looking good. We've got an amazing show lined up for you today with one of my favorite people in the whole world. We've got the fabulous Laura Capell-Abra from No More Ifs or Buts, and also from Stress Matters and the many other things that she does. So really looking forward to that show, to the masterclass from Laura about time management. I mean, who couldn't do with a bit more of those kind of super skills? I know I can. I mean, I'm pretty all right, but definitely could do with learning a bit more. So just going to turn that down. So yes, without any further ado, let's get into the show. Tell you what's coming up. So we've got the masterclass with Laura. We've got the DW Live Show panel. We're going to be talking to you guys on Facebook and also on YouTube. Thanks so much for tuning in again, guys. We do this show for you. So I hope you're going to get some really good takeaways. Please get involved. Please send questions in as we go, and also at the end as well. And then anything we talk about, we'll put in the wrap up this afternoon or early this evening as well. So a few thank yous. Thank you to Events Case for the registration. Thank you to Dom Callum, Ed and the team at Stream for putting on this show and making it look so amazing. A lot of work goes into it, guys. And, I just want to give them a big shout out because they do put a lot of effort into it, and I hope it comes across as well. And then also to our season sponsor, who are Events Air, and we've got another little video for you. We've got 2 shows left with them. We've really enjoyed our time with them. So here they are, guys. If you can check out this video, that'd be great.
You've heard from me over the last few weeks, but what I want to do is introduce the team and get their thoughts on Events Air.
Registrations are typically part of every conference or event. From individual registrations or group registrations, paid for registrations or part paid for registrations, to free to attend events. From simple RSVPs and more complex driven, multiple preference capture and logic driven pages, Events Air has you covered.
Aircast Studio is a powerful tool that allows you to deliver high quality content to the attendees at your events. The studio gives you a mixing desk in the back end of the platform that allows you to deliver broadcast quality streams with greater flexibility than using something like Zoom, but without the expense of needing to bring in a professional AV team.
Meeting Hub as a tool is the social network built within Events Air and within the on-air platform. It gives all the attendees the ability to connect on calls, to send messages to one another, to have group conversations, and to actually book those meetings. It replaces the most loved features of real-life live events, being able to actually approach someone, book calls, have meetings, and really network.
The 3D mode for the On-Air One solution is an intuitive and interactive way to engage your attendees, make their event experience exceed all expectation. It's a feature that can accommodate every event due to its slimline and professional appearance, which can be altered to any style.
Breakout rooms are a fantastic way to get people together in either smaller random groups or in pre-configured groups where they go and choose the topics that they might want to attend.
Thanks to Andy and the team at Events there for some great messages. We really appreciate their support. So thanks a lot, guys. I hope you can check them out. Okay, on with the show. First of all, I'd like to say a few hellos to everybody in the chat room. Mandeep, how are you? Angie, Emma, Helena. Hi, Helena, how are you? Jan, starring again in the DW Live Show video later, you'll see in the panel. Leah, Natalie, Haley, Felicity, Lisa. The list goes on. Thanks a lot for all your support, guys. We really appreciate it. And also to all the people watching on YouTube as well. Don't forget, you can drop us questions on both platforms. Let us know. We'll keep an eye on that all the way through it. So, yeah, and as I say, we're live on Facebook, on the Delegate Wranglers Facebook group, and also on YouTube. Give us a follow on YouTube, guys. It really makes a difference to us. We're trying to get our numbers up through that 1,000 followers barrier. So, anyone who follows us really helps us. So, on with the show. I am now delighted to introduce my good friend, Laura Capell-Abra. Hey, Laura, how are you?
Hello. I'm very happy to be here on this beautifully sunny day, which I'm so pleased other people have got sun and I'm not hogging it. So I like that everybody's in this sunny day today as well.
Oh, you're such a liar, Laura. You'd like rather be outside, wouldn't you, in the sun? Come on. I know I would. No.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Okay, we can talk about time management and I can make it more efficient later so that I can then go out in the sun later.
Yeah, make time for it. Perfect. Good thinking. So, Laura, I know you've got you've got multiple hats. You know, you run Stress Matters and No More Ifs and Buts, which is the company you're kind of representing today. Do you want to give us a bit of information about, you know, what No More Ifs and Buts is specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, some of you I may well know through my Stress Matters hat when we're talking about stress and mental health and workplace wellbeing. But for those of you that caught the DW Live when we were talking about side hustles, you'll know that that's actually my side hustle, and my kind of day job in essence is No More Ifs or Buts. So No More Ifs or Buts is a coaching and development company that I set up 5 years ago now, when I left the events agency that I was running. So I left the role of managing director to basically try and come up with something that was a little bit more supportive for those in the industry that needed training and development. Back at that point, there were limited options for people's development who worked in the industry, and I really wanted to come up with something that was really person-centric, but also really focused on creative individuals and, you know, really easy to understand and to kind of made sense for event-type people. So No More Ifs or Buts was born, about 5 years ago now.
Fantastic, and I know you do some amazing stuff, and we will put a link to Laura's Facebook group and also to your website a bit later on, and also Laura's on YouTube. I'm not sure if Dom's got the graphic for us. Sorry if I've just dumped that on you, Dom, but we can. I can put that in the chat later on as well. So Laura, we are here to talk about the fantastic subject of time management. I am honestly eternally I'm one of these people who's always trying to streamline, get better, fix processes. I think a lot of event managers are like that. They're trying to think of a better way to do something and a quicker that will save them time. So do you want to roll into your masterclass and give us some, I'm looking forward to some really hot tips here from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the reasons that I end up coming back to time management all the time is exactly what you just said then. When I was an event manager, as I am fully aware of all of you guys because I've been through it all before, it's tough trying to balance everything. And I think for me, it actually even started slightly earlier. So when I was at university, I was a full-time student, but also full-time working in my role as well. And so right from that point, I had to kind of work out how I could have the best of both worlds, because I wanted a party like all my other student friends, but also had to do the work as well. And so it's kind of carried on through. And it's taken me a long time, and I'm not going to claim at all that I nail it every single day. So please don't think I'm sitting here very smugly thinking I know how to manage my time management consistently. There are days I definitely get it wrong as well. But I think hopefully there are some lessons that I can share with you guys that I have gone through the painful side of having to learn. And therefore, hopefully you guys can jump straight to the solution rather than going through the challenge.
But you know what, Laura? I'm expecting big things from you now. You know, if I get one late email from you.
Well, when you say late, okay, so that's an interesting thing. When you say late, do you mean late in the day or me not responding to you? I'd like to think
you not responding. You not responding. You don't respond.
Okay, I was going to go. So, okay, first of all then, what I want to do, and this is for you guys to get involved, I'd actually like us to think first of all about what it is you would actually do if you had more time. So we quite often think about the fact that we don't have enough time, and actually what I'd love you guys to think about just for a moment, and please feel free to put it in the chat on whatever platform you're in the comments. I'd love to know what you would actually do if you had more time. So I'm thinking maybe like half an hour, not like, you know, weeks on end. And I know some of us have been through that with furlough, but if you had half an hour a day of more time, what is it you would actually do with that? Because I think sometimes when we understand what the kind of benefit is of creating more time, we can be a little bit more invested in trying to find that time throughout the day and trying to approach things differently. Because otherwise, just saying we want more time doesn't actually give us the inclination of bother trying to do it. So I think that's quite an interesting thing, is think about what it is that you want more time for, okay? So Neil, what is it you would do if you had more time every day?
Oh, do you know what? If I had more time, what would I do? I'd probably just do more work, which I know sounds stupid because I probably should be. I mean, to be honest, I am always one of those people who I have routines where I get into it and I'll go like running and do headspace and all that kind of stuff. And then I get through a really busy period at work and I'll say, I haven't got any time. And I'm not kind of making time. So I think I would make time to do all those things that improve me as a person.
Okay, I love that. So thinking about your kind of your personal well-being and personal development, and you're not alone. That comes up quite often when it comes to us not using our time properly. Hence, one of the reasons Stress Matters came about, particularly for events people. We're so focused on doing things for our clients and our delegates and attendees that quite often we as individuals get put back. So quite often it is things like going for a run, going for a walk, listening to Headspace, for example. But you also mentioned work there, and sometimes people want more time to actually get things on their off their to-do list that may be the kind of bigger, more kind of proactive things as well. So there's kind of more strategic, wouldn't it be nice if I managed to get this launched or had this new idea or whatever it ends up being. So as I said, first of all, thank you.
I was just going to say, Laura, sorry, I just ran a quick poll as well, which basically was to ask the group, how would you assess your time management? We had 13% say not very good, 87% say wish it was better, and 0% said not too shabby, to be honest. So we all could do with this masterclass, and it seems like we're all in need of it as well.
Brilliant, excellent. Okay, so we've all identified that we've got a bit of a need for understanding how we can improve our time. And as I said, if we start thinking about, okay, what's that one thing I want to do every day that might be half an hour, for example. Actually, what is it I would do if I had more time? Because if we've got that clearly in our heads, there's a kind of incentive, isn't there? It's a bit like a carrot. Actually, if we know what we could do if we had more time, we're probably inclined a little bit more to think about it. And it's so easy right now for our kind of boundaries to blur in the day that actually we can quite often just spend extra time doing things because we've got the time in many respects, and it just means that we're not being very effective with that time. So if there's some more exciting things we'd want to do, now the world is opening up and it's sunny again, actually having that as a good incentive can help with our time management, because we're just thinking, do you know what, I get to reward myself if I've done something positive. So that's the first thing, is just thinking about what it is you would do if you had more time.
I was just going to say, Laura, as well, just giving you some results from what people are saying in the chat. Natalie McGregor saying, I would reduce my to-do list. Gail Matheson Crow says, I'd make some time for me as well. So exactly what you were saying, really, a good mixture of those things. You know, get to the bottom of your inbox, things like that. It's always amazing to do that, isn't it?
Zero inbox, what the aspiration is behind it is huge, isn't it? Okay, so my biggest kind of area of focus that we're going to talk about for a little bit now is around energy levels. So I'm going to straight away say I'm a very practical person. I've grown up in the events industry, and I appreciate talking about energy levels can sound a little bit hippie-esque. So I'm putting it straight out there now. There is a very practical reason for talking about your energy levels, and I promise you it really does have a really big impact on your time management. So this is essentially one of the things that when I got my head around it, it completely transformed the way that I worked. Okay, so if you think about your energy level throughout the day, when do you have higher energy and when do you have lower energy? Okay, so thinking about, are you the kind of person that jumps out of bed in the morning and suddenly has loads of energy? Or are you the person that actually needs a couple of coffees, slowly gears up for the day? You might still already be working, but you're really head's not in it quite yet. And maybe you peak late morning, or maybe even in the afternoon, or maybe you're one of these people that actually doesn't peak until the evening. So I'm an early bird. Neil, what about you? What kind of person are you?
I'm a weirdo. I'm an early bird and a night owl as well. I do sometimes have a dip in the middle of the afternoon, and the kids have laughed at me when it was quieter during last summer. They'd say they come in, sometimes they just find me having a little power nap somewhere. But I would love that concept, you know, to just be able to have a nap in the afternoon, power out in the morning until like 3 o'clock, have half an hour, and then come back again. But I do work far too hard and too long that it's just become normal for me. So you just kind of manage it along the way. But yeah, I guess everybody's different, aren't they? You know, I'd be interested to know what you guys are all saying in chat. Just looking now, there's a couple of people saying morning bird, and Gail saying afternoon, evening. It's really interesting, isn't it? We're all different, really. You know, is it linked, Laura, to how much sleep you get as well? That kind of behaviour.
So kind of, but it's also linked to, and this is where I said it gets a bit hippie-esque, or it's not actually, it's about science, but around our circadian rhythms. So some of us are just built to be more morning people, and some of us are built to be more evening people. Now, over years, you can kind of train your body to be slightly differently. So I didn't historically used to be a morning person, but I did a lot of work with Dubai, and so my day started earlier naturally. So over a long period of time, I became more of a morning person. But yeah, we are each unique, so we all have different peaks and troughs throughout the day. So a quite good exercise for you guys to do, and obviously you can't really do this online, so you're gonna have to go old-fashioned pen and paper for this, is to grab a piece of paper and draw yourself like an energy graph throughout the day. So actually think about when you wake up in the morning right the way through to when you go to bed at night, and draw the kind of peaks and troughs throughout the day as to where your energy level is. So it might be, you know, peak 1 or 2, 3 times. It could just be you barely feel like you're getting to a peak at the moment, depending on what things are doing. Depending on what things are happening. But actually being able to look at your energy levels and go, okay, I've got more energy in the morning. Okay, well, that's great. Fine. What do I do with that? Okay, so this is the bit when it really comes down to being able to understand how you can improve your time management. So if you think about the fact that if you are the kind of person like Neil and I who have energy in the morning, think really carefully about what you do in the morning. Okay, so when you've got that huge burst of energy, whatever time of the day it is for you, but that kind of period of time when you've got the most energy, try and do the tasks that are the most challenging for you at that point. So there's no point using all this great energy that you have at whatever point in the day that is to do something you find super easy, because actually you're not using your brain power effectively. So for me, for example, I know that actually looking at finances always takes a bit more effort than writing workshops or delivering workshops, for example. So if I've got to do finance work, I inevitably have to make myself do it first thing in the morning. And the reason I make myself do it first thing in the morning is because I know that's when I have the most energy. So I've got more brain power to tackle the thing that's more challenging. So actually, if I was to just do, that when I had the least energy, so for me, I lose energy at about 4 or 5 o'clock, and a bit like you, Neil, actually, I'll pick up again in the evening. But about 4 or 5 o'clock, that's not a great time for me to be doing finance, because my brain's a bit fried already. I'm on a low point on my energy, and actually it means that I'm going to have to work even harder to be able to do that task. So the more we can kind of map our energy level and our tasks, the more positive impact we can have.
I think the longer you leave, for me personally, the longer I leave jobs like that as well, the more excuses I give myself to go, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do whatever. But yeah, I'm the same, tackle those big tasks as early as you can, as possible, get them out the way. And because often the thought of a big task, a big horrible task that you don't like doing, is worse than actually doing it, isn't it? It's not often as bad as what you think. But what about diet as well? Is it anything? And you may be coming onto that as well. So excuse me if you are. Tell me to shut up. But is diet linked to that as well?
Yeah, so for any of you that are drawing your energy graphs, if you are drawing it and suddenly you realise you have a massive trough straight after lunch, it's probably a question that what you're eating for lunch, your nutrition at lunch isn't maybe giving you enough energy. So historically, quite a lot of us might grab you do it now as well, but when we used to go in between meetings and we grab a sandwich from the sandwich shop, for example, we might eat something that's really carb heavy in the middle of the day, or pasta salad or something like that. And all of a sudden, our body's got to go into digestion mode. So all of our brain power and all of our energy is going to our stomach to digest our food, rather than helping us achieve whatever task is. So it's completely connected to that. So actually thinking about what you eat and when, which is why you quite often hear about good nutrition techniques in terms of grazing throughout the day, because if you can give yourself little boosts of energy throughout the day, it means that hopefully you don't have as many peaks and troughs as you could do. So yeah, nutrition is totally related to it in terms of your energy levels, and of course therefore if you then play that forward into connected to your time management, it impacts your ability to manage your time and be more organized. So you do have to think about what you're eating for sure.
Actually linked in quite well with Lisa Sweeting. Hi Lisa, by the way. Who's definitely saying, I'm definitely better in the morning, usually have a mid-afternoon slump, actively work quite well around tea time, but unfortunately that's when I'm making dinner for the family. So when she's feeling really strong and full of power, it's unfortunately when she's not working. But I guess the one thing about working from home is you can kind of juggle things around a little bit, can't you? Rather than, just having to do set hours in the office. So I think we're a bit lucky. It's good. Things might change a little bit different when people go back to workspaces again as well.
Yeah, it is. And one of the things that we've spent quite a lot of time doing over the years is talking to businesses. And this has been such a great kind of push this direction, is getting people to work more what we call fluidly, rather than working to set hours. So if you think about your time as 24 hours rather than 9 till 5. Now, some people will find working 9 till 5 very comfortable. I'd imagine most of you in the events industry are pretty used to not working 9 till 5, so probably a bit more comfortable with it. But the idea of encouraging employers and managers and colleagues, for example, to accept the fact that some of us have different peaks and troughs throughout the day. So actually you work to your energy level rather than working to the clock. So actually, if you get a real boost of energy, so for as I said, I'm an early bird. So this morning I started work at 7:15, which sounds horrific for some people. And I totally appreciate that. But it meant that after a couple of hours, I could then have a bit of a break, because actually my boost of energy, I got loads of stuff out the door, but actually then I could have a little bit of a break and I could have a nice relaxing time of doing breakfast and things like that, and then carry on with my day. So thinking about, well, actually in the historical 9 till 5 world, there would be no point starting at that point. You'd start at 9. So you'd waste that good energy from earlier on. So having a conversation with your team and saying, okay, well, actually, I work really well in the evening when the kids have gone to bed, or in the morning. And to your point, Neil, the fact that actually with everything that's happened recently and all of us having these slightly more blurry boundaries in terms of work, and the trust that people are now having to put into us about working from home, that's made it generally a little bit easier for us to manage it. Obviously, there's lots of other things that have meant it's more challenging for us to manage our time in that period as well. But I'm hoping that's something that carries forward, that actually businesses will be a lot more pro you working the hours that make sense for you rather than working specific hours.
I think so. I think that is definitely being introduced by more and more companies these days. I think with the advent of your Googles and your Facebooks, and the way they work in their offices is very much geared around that, just getting the job done under your terms and listening to your body. So I think that's a really good tip that you've said there. It's important to listen to your body and do those tasks early or late, depending on what type of person you are. Okay, great. So what's next, Laura, on your fabulous masterclass?
Okay, so what is next is about multitasking. So we've probably all heard about the fact that multitasking isn't supposedly a good thing, and have probably never really believed it. And probably, if you were like me, believe that actually I break all of those rules and I'm just really good at multitasking, and it's just everybody else that isn't good at multitasking. So I've got a little exercise again that people can do. You can do it now if you want, or you can do it later, which I think is a really good way to prove to yourself that multitasking isn't actually as effective as you think it might be. Okay, so this is going to be one that I'm going to have to describe, and you can do now or you can do later. If you do it now, put in the comments how you get on, because it'll be good to see. But if you write down the words "switch tasking is a thief," okay, so switch tasking is a thief. And then underneath that, write the numbers 1 to 21, I think it is. So under S, you write the number 1. Under W, you write the number 2, etc. So you basically have a line of text and a line of numbers. Now, what the good way of kind of being able to see your the loss of time, the lack of productivity when it comes to switch tasking, is there's a little game you can play where you copy those words and those numbers and you time yourself. Okay, so the first time you're going to do is you're going to write those words again. So you're going to write switch tasking as a thief and then the numbers 1 to 21 underneath it, and you're going to time yourself doing that. Okay, so that's one thing. So that's how we quite often we will do a piece of work. We'll be like, right, okay, well, we'll do this and then do that. However, when we're multitasking, what we're doing is switching between things all the time. So if you've got like 25 tabs open on your laptop constantly and 3 emails drafted or whatever it is, actually try timing yourself again, but do it, write it in a different way. So you start with S and then you write the number 1. Then you write the letter W and then you write number 2. So what you do is go top to bottom rather than left to right, okay? And time yourself doing those 2 different approaches to writing exactly the same amount of letters and exactly the same amount of numbers. And we tend to find that it can go anything from kind of 25 to 50% an increase in time when you switch tasks. And one of the reasons is you're switching between words and numbers. So that's a big one, that actually your brain is just using slightly different parts. But also, it's apparently 20 minutes it takes to refocus your brain on the task in hand. So if you get distracted and then you go off and do something else, it takes 20 minutes to get back into the zone. But if you're constantly doing things that are less than 20 minutes, then actually you're never really, really focused on what you're doing.
Do you know, I am the world's worst at that. I'll be in the middle of writing some marketing thing or planning something, and then an email will come in that just gets me attention that I can quickly answer, or, you know, it really excites me, and then I'm off on that tangent. And then you're right, I've then got to come back and go, right, where was I? I was in the flow earlier, and now it's gone. So that happens to me all the time, Laura. I'm sure I'm not the only one. You know, if that happens to anyone else in the group, you know, please let us know in the chat. But that's a really good example of it. I like that.
Yeah, I think the exercise is quite a random one to do in terms of just writing letters and numbers and timing yourself. But for me, it was a really good way to really understand how much time I lose. Because, I can do both. We can all multitask. But actually what we don't appreciate sometimes is how much of a time lag it's causing. So I always say to people, well, actually, I'm not going to change the amount of work you do in this situation, but I'm going to change how fast you do it, because you're going to be more efficient if you do things in blocks. So if you are going to focus on doing emails, for example, do a bulk of emails. And then if actually you're doing finance, for example, or you're doing some kind of proposal, do them together. But as I said, your brain is then thinking in the same way. And if you can then connect those with your energy levels, so actually those tasks that you find easy or those tasks that you find hard, again, you're blocking them. So you can say, right, I'm going to do all of that finance stuff I find more challenging in my high energy time, and all those emails that I find really easy, I'm going to do all of them together when I've got like no energy. Then actually you find that you get through more work in a day just by changing the way you organize it.
Quick question there from on that very point, really timely, from Emma Gamer. Hi, Emma. Emma's been on the show, veteran of the show. Any top tips for those like me that get very easily distracted and feel the pressure to react and respond quickly? So that's, that I guess is most event people are in that world where they just, the trouble is we cannot, they're almost like the reverse of a procrastinator. They're almost too much. Something comes in, deal with it. Something comes in, deal with it. Forget what you were doing, deal with it, because that's very much the way event management is. You respond to things quickly, put out fires everywhere. So any ideas on how to do that? I mean, I have this, one thing I can say is I have this theory, Emma, that the more emails you send, so if you're working late at night, the more emails you send, the more you're going to get back. So I know that sounds really stupid, but if you're doing them late at night, it just means you're going to wake up in the morning with 10 emails responding to you, rather than if you'd have just waited till the morning, you could have done them in daytime, and got off to a kind of fairly easier start. Does that make sense, Laura? I don't know if that fits in with what you're about to say.
Yeah, no, I think that does make sense in terms of actually asking yourself, do you need to respond? Because you say if you get into a conversation stream with somebody, then inevitably they're going to respond and you've got another email to answer. But I think the question is a really valid question, as you say. Actually, it is procrastination to a degree. So I wouldn't agree that it's the opposite to procrastination. It's just another way of being ineffective. So what we quite often find is actually maybe we're doing that more often when there's a piece of work we don't really want to do. So actually we don't want to really be putting this document together because it's going to take us 4 hours. Actually, so we do get sidetracked by all those random emails that come through. We're like, oh, I'll just do that. And then it'll only take me 5 minutes. And then, as I said, you get totally sidetracked and you go off into a stream of emails. So there's a couple of different ways of managing this. One is, again, that blocking your time. So most of us have an attention span that is not 4 hours long. So try and work out what your attention span is. So I would say my attention span is normally about 40 minutes. And then I tend to get a little bit bored. So for anybody that does calls with me, you tend to know I'll do like a 45-minute call because that's pretty much me done by that point. I'm like, you're not going to get anything else out of me. Right, let's end the call. So when you know what your attention span is, again, you can use that when you're planning your time. So if I've got a document that's going to take me 4 hours, there is no point me sitting there and going, I've got to do 4 hours on this, because my brain is going to hate that. And I'm going to look for every way to stop myself doing that by looking on social media and, you know, having a chat with someone and sending an email, whatever it is. So actually being able to look at it and go, okay, what can I do that's only going to take 40 minutes? Do that, then have a break, then maybe do something completely different, and then come back to it and do another 40 minutes. So if you can break up your to-do list so that every item on your to-do list is only the length of your attention span. Now, of course, it might be shorter, which is great. It'll be a quick win for you. But making sure that anything that's on your to-do list is less than your attention span means you've got a chance of getting it completed. And there's not that disheartening thing of, oh, I've got to spend another however many hours finishing this.
And it's absolutely brilliant ticking off anything off your to-do list, isn't it? You know, so if you can put smaller blocks of things into your to-do list. I mean, and I would also say on an extension of that, Laura, is if any of you guys use Outlook, Microsoft Outlook, you know, you can, and any kind of calendar really, you can block time off with like colored blocks and things like this, which are for emails. You know, you can say this is my email and time, and just block it off, and you can try and plan your week around it a little bit. I do try to do that. It doesn't always work out, but it's definitely useful. So when you wake up, you look at it and you think, okay, this is what I'm doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. Creating those boundaries for yourself is really important. So, you know, I know that I tend not to do workshops on a Friday. I've got 1 or 2 clients that request them on a Friday, but generally we don't do workshops on a Friday because most of our clients don't want them. So I know that when I plan my week, it's a bit like with the energy levels, there are certain tasks I'm only ever going to do on a Friday because I've got that bit more flexibility in my day. So absolutely planning your week and going, right, do you know what, that afternoon or that morning, I'm not going to do it for the whole 4 or 5 hours, but that morning I'm going to get that task done, but I'm going to get these little tasks done as well. That can be useful. But one thing I would say is quite often when you get emails from clients, for example, and they'll be like, right, can you do this? Can you go and source that? Whatever it is. Always remembering they can't see your diary. So actually, there's no way that don't know that you're in a meeting. So if you don't respond within 10, 15 minutes, it would be fair to assume you're in a meeting. So I think sometimes we think we need to have full visibility for our clients and they're going to expect me to respond. Well, they're not going to expect you to respond if you're in a meeting. So I think sometimes we forget that clients actually quite well, unless you're using a very open software with them, they can't see what you're doing. So you could be doing something very important.
You know what? I totally agree as well. There's a certain amount of managing your clients as well, isn't there? So if you respond like super quickly, they're going to expect that all the time. So, you know, maybe it's good to take a beat and you know, take half an hour or whatever to respond to something rather than instantly. That sounds like I'm giving bad service here, doesn't it? I wouldn't mind, but I'm the world's worst. I just respond to things really quickly. So anyone who's ever emailed me, Laura, just before we go to our break, I ran another poll in the chat, which is to do with this, and it was: do you like your day to be flexible, go with the flow, structured, i.e. mapped out meticulously, or somewhere in between the two? So the results were flexible, go with the flow, 6%, 25% were structured, mapped out meticulously, and 69% was somewhere in between the two, which I guess is probably where I am as well. I'm probably somewhere in between the two, a mixture of rigid things and also some fluidity, which I don't think helps me, but I need to be a bit more rigid, I think. Does that surprise you, those results?
No, not at all. I think one of the things that can really help with those that want the somewhere in the between is having a structured start and end to the day and keeping the middle bit flexible. So actually, you know, what time do you start? Can you keep that regular? Can you make sure you are trying to switch off at the same time? One of the things that I'll quickly cover now, because I know we're going to go on to this, but if you set yourself too many tasks to do in a day, you're going to end up working late, of course, and you're going to be disheartened by the fact you've not done it. But always try and think about how many meetings you have. Quite often I see people's to-do lists and they forget that they're in 4 hours or 6 hours of meetings that day. So there's no way they're going to get through the 25 things they've got on their list that day in a decent amount of time. So being honest with yourself and going, do you know what? I tend to have 4 hours of meetings in a day, which means I've only got half of my day left to do tasks. So actually that gives you the structure and the flexibility to say, okay, well, I've got 4 hours to be reactive and 4 hours I've got, you know, those meetings that are already in, for example. So actually looking at your diary sounds really silly, but looking at your diary when you're planning your to-do list is really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's fantastic, Laura. That's part one wrapped up, guys. We're just going to go quickly to one of my favourite parts of the show, the DW live show panel, with another crucial question that the gang are answering this week. So check it out.
Oh man, I need all my clothes to be skinny fitting and tight because I'm so skinny that anything like flares or baggy clothes looks terrible on me. So whenever that era was, probably what, 80s, when the skinny jeans and skinny t-shirts came in. I'm not sure that fashion's really gone anywhere, but that's definitely what I need, tight and skinny.
Right, fashion trends. Oh my goodness. Well, I wouldn't want to bring anything back from the 80s when I was a child because just awful clothes. Shell suits, no way. So I guess I'd have to go earlier. I'd have to go like 1970s or something because there was some amazing styles around in the 70s. Like everyone just went crazy. Like disco wear, flower power shirts, you know, like some really kind of cool stuff. Everyone just really kind of threw everything out the window and just expressed themselves. So I don't know if there's a particular fashion trend, but I think generally the 70s looked like a really cool era to grow up in. So bring something back from the 70s, I'd say.
What trend would I like to bring back? Well, hot pants, no. Platforms, no. Bell bottoms, maybe. But for me, it's this wonderful, wonderful glittery dress. Okay, I had this dress over 30 years ago for an event at the Dorchester, and I absolutely love it, and I still have it and refuse to get rid of it. So I'd like to bring this back, and I would also like to be able to fit in it again as well. I do still wear it, but it's far too tight. So that's what I'd bring back, and I'd bring back my old body to go in it as well.
I think that the fashion industry is actually very good at bringing back some of the top trends, so I don't really miss any trends. I think the fashion industry will take care of that for us.
I've just been trying to think of fashion trends that I was on board with when I was a child, and the only thing that sprung to mind was jelly shoes. I had them in every single colour, and I've not seen them for years. So yeah, bring them back. Love the jelly shoes.
What fashion trend do I think should be brought back? Well, based on the fact that every pair of trainers I wear is from about a 5-year period in the late 80s and early 90s, anything that's bright and wildly offensive, or in fact just classic, like these bad boys. So anything like the Air Max 90 infrareds, like the ZX torsions, anything like that needs to be brought back on a more regular basis, and preferably produced in a size 10, 10.5 or 11, depending on manufacturer.
Well, that was amazing. I say bring back the 80s fashion. I had my Ben Sherman shirt, Pringle jumper, Farah trousers, Adidas shoes. Yeah, I was a casual in the 80s. Love that look. How about you, Laura? I don't know if you managed.
Yeah, I'm definitely an 80s fan. There is too many sequins in my diary still. So to be fair, in my diary, in my wardrobe. So to be fair, I'm probably still rocking the 80s look a lot of the time. So not even that I'd bring it back to it anyway. I go full on 80s when I want to go out.
Me too, definitely. So thank you to everybody who got involved with the panel there. We really enjoyed it. Look forward to. We've got all our questions for this season, but if you want to get involved next season, guys, drop us a line at info@thedelegatewranglers.com or send in any questions that you'd like us to ask the panel as well. So on with the show, Laura. I know we've got about 15-20 minutes left, so I know you've got a lot to cover. Crack on.
Okay, so next thing I want to talk about is habits, which kind of links into the question earlier about procrastination. So thinking about habits, it's about how can you make your life easier and how we make our life more complicated. So quite often we get into what we call decision fatigue, which is when we have so many decisions that we have to make a day. So I've read that apparently we have to make 35,000 decisions every single day. And so, of course, trying to spend time thinking about each one of those consciously is going to take a huge amount of effort and obviously be pretty ineffective of us doing anything. So I also really like the fact that you may well know that people like Barack Obama and Mark Zuckerberg and back in the day Steve Jobs would all wear very, very similar clothes every single day. And one of the reasons they gave for this was the fact that they wanted to remove that need to make that decision every single day. So actually saying, well, if I've got this many people to serve in the role that I have, I don't want to be spending, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes in the morning trying to work out what I want to wear. So I'm always going to wear that t-shirt or always wear that coloured suit, for example. And I think that's a really interesting thing to think about in terms of our habits and how we make our lives sometimes a little bit more challenging for ourselves. So when we think about habits and time management, actually what kind of good and bad habits do we have that impact our time? So, for example, is it that actually you sit down to do a piece of work and inevitably actually, I think I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. So we're doing that after we've sat down for work. And maybe it's the sitting down that place, looking around and going, oh, I haven't got a cup of tea. I need to go and get one. Whatever it is, we tend to find there's little habits. It might be that as soon as you've finished a Zoom call, actually you end the meeting and you go check your emails to see what you've missed while you've been on the half an hour Zoom call. So we have things that we do sometimes on autopilot that are habits that don't necessarily serve us. So one of the things that I think is a really useful thing to think of when we think of habits, which is kind of time management, but also a little bit of my well-being hat on, is when you get to the end of a Zoom meeting, for example, when you hit end meeting, actually using that moment that as you're hitting end meeting, you're standing up and moving. So, with my well-being hat on, making sure you've got moving throughout the day is a really important thing. But of course, when it comes to time management, the more you can move every so often and the more you can kind of reset your energy, like I was saying before, actually that can really help with you feeling more focused and re-energized for the next task. So how can you build habits into what you do throughout the day to make sure things are more effective? And some of that comes with that structuring of time as well, so that you always do something, whatever it is for you, in the morning or last thing at night. So, thinking about, even if hopefully you're writing a to-do list to give yourself some kind of structure, but when do you write that to-do list? Actually, are you writing that at the end of your day, ready for the next morning? Or are you the kind of person that prefers to write it first thing in the morning so you know what you're doing for the day ahead? And actually those habits that we can build ourselves into can have a real kind of knock-on effect with how we approach work.
And I think just to go back on the habit side, the hard thing is whether something is a good habit or a bad habit as well. I think that's the hardest thing to work out, isn't it, really? Because you might say, oh, I've always done that because that's the way I've always done it, or whatever. And it might not be the best thing. So I think trying to work that out, which is, I don't know, how do you do that? Do you need somebody else to look at you, maybe you almost tell them what you do and see whether they think that's a good idea? Because it's quite hard to break habits when you've always done things, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think one of the ways to do it is be really honest with yourself about what you're trying to achieve. So actually that could be what you want to achieve over the next month. It could be week, even it could be quarter, depending on what role is and what responsibilities you have. So say month, like what is it I want to achieve over the next month? And then ask yourselves, when you find you're getting into these habits, essentially asking yourself, well, everything you do during the day, is that helping me achieve that or not? Because in essence, what I'd say is if it's not helping you achieve it, it's probably a bad habit. And one person's version of a bad habit can be very different to somebody else's. So I might say, for example, scrolling on social media might be a bad habit for somebody, and I'm sure there are many people that spend a lot of time doing that. But actually, for some people, that's really important, and it isn't a bad habit. It's actually a good habit for them getting connected to other people, learning about things, improving their profile on social media, whatever it is. So one person's good habit can very much be one person's bad habit, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. So I think that's an important thing, a really important point to make, Neil, is that actually you've got to identify what are your good and bad habits. And also, of course, how much knock-on effect they're having on your time. So if you know that you're spending take the evening, for example. I'm sure most of us have watched a lot of Netflix over the last year. I can pretty much determine essentially a whole year's worth of time based on the different box sets I was watching throughout the year, which isn't ideal. But that's pretty much how I can break up my pandemic, my story in my mind of what box set was I watching in that moment. Now, yeah, it's a good way of going, okay, well, actually, me watching an episode of whatever is going to be good for me to wind down after work. And, frankly, there's only so much you can do. But actually, me watching 4 of those, is that a good use of my time or not? So watching 1 or maybe even watching 2 episodes might actually really help me to kind of reset, to kind of decompress a little bit, escapism, that's all great. Do I still need that for the second 2 episodes? Or is that me wasting my time? And so it's asking yourself, what are you trying to achieve? And then are those habits good and bad in that level?
I know one way that I kind of got through early lockdowns, particularly the first one, was to be quite structured in my habits and what I was doing. So I'd get up in the morning, me and my son would go for a walk, come back, do some work, do things around the house. I was quite but I also tried to be flexible as well. I also tried to go, well, I don't feel like doing that today. I don't need to do it. So I think with your own time, it's important to have a bit of structure, but also to listen to your body as well and listen to yourself. I mean, one thing I do quite a lot, Laura, or did, was instead of I've always worked from home, so it's always been the same for me. But instead of always just working from here, sometimes I'll go to the coffee shop round the corner and work there for a couple of hours, because it just broke up the habit of just being here all day. And I'd go there and I'd find a bit more inspiration, or I'd be a bit more relaxed, but it would certainly help me, things like that.
Yeah, changing the environment's a really big thing. One, it's the process of getting there, so the actual movements, getting your blood pumping. But yeah, change your environment's going to kind of change of inspiration as well. So I think that's a really useful thing. I think when we think about habits, it's, there are lots of good and bad habits, and there are lots of things that we might want to tackle. We don't necessarily want to tackle them all at once. It might be, can you start thinking about one thing you're going to want to change that's going to make you that little bit more efficient? And it could be something that's only going to make you 10 minutes more efficient. But if you think about that adding up over days, that's going to have a really big compound effect. So actually, if we're saying right at the beginning, okay, what would you do if you had half an hour more time, but you've managed to save yourself 10 minutes a day by doing something slightly differently, then actually you're already a third the way there. So you're already making good progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just noticed a question there. Well, it's more of a statement from Mark Fater in the chat. An old boss of mine used to say, if it's not revenue generating, you have to question if it's a task you should be doing.
Very hard. I like it, absolutely.
I think attitudes like that have changed massively now, haven't they? I don't think people behave like that. Maybe they do. I don't know.
It's interesting with a bit of my stress matters hat on again. I have this conversation quite a lot with people in terms of priorities, and when you've got like fee earnings or sales teams, for example, and I'm going, well, if it's not about bringing in the money, then it's not important. So when you're thinking about well-being, for example, they might go, well, it's not important. I don't need to ask them how they're doing that day, or support them on this because it's not helping me earn money. And actually, it is. So when we talk about well-being, we're saying, well, actually, you looking out for somebody and improving their well-being actually does have a direct impact on your bottom line. It's just not in the most traditional sense. So I think sometimes even when you have those priorities, it's about looking at those priorities in a different way. And as you say, it's slightly changed attitudes nowadays. But I think even that point, it's still helping you earn money if you're doing that. It's just that you're getting there a slightly different route in terms of your time management.
Just another quick comment from Jan Denning, who also says, I've also tried to ask myself, will it make the boat go faster? And that came from a business motivational session from Olympic rower Ben Hunt Davis. I like the sound of that, and I'm guessing that's looking at what you're doing and is it actually making a difference or not? I guess that's what it means.
Yeah, exactly. It's that prioritization thing. So where I was saying, think about it, what is you're trying to achieve? What's your kind of focus for the week, the month, the day even? What is it you're trying to achieve? And is that going to help you with that or not? So that's a great way of putting it. Is it going to make the boat go faster? It's like, are you going to get closer to your objectives? One of the ways I do describe, another way to think about it is, if you're going to be sat down with your boss in your next review, and they're going to ask you what you've been doing for the last month, has any of the things on your to-do list actually gone against your objectives? Or are they completely irrelevant? Because you're saying, well, I helped this and I did that and I just really reacted quickly to that other person. That's all great, but does it actually get you doing what job you're supposed to be doing and the objectives? And I think that's, again, another way of doing it, just going, okay, well, I need to prioritize where I'm spending my time and how I'm doing it. And I think once you can kind of have in your head, this is the why, this is what I'm trying to achieve with my time, or why I'm trying to achieve more time, then it's far easier for us to go, okay, well, no. There's an amazing book called Essentialism. So it really kind of goes down that route of, okay, what's important, and do that extremely well, rather than trying to do 25 things. Now, I obviously know from being in the events world, sometimes we need to do 25 things. But actually, the Essentialism book's a really good book for thinking about, okay, how am I approaching it? Am I approaching it in a way that puts that really, that kind of core focus really front and center or not?
Yeah, I think, Laura, as well, if you can let us know the author of that book, and what we'll do is we'll put that in the wrap up later on, because that sounds really, I'd like to read that myself. It sounds really interesting. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left. So I don't know what subjects you've got next on your list to cover, but I'm looking forward to them.
Okay, so just to finish on that, mentioning the point about books, there's another book which we can put in the wrap up as well, which is called Atomic Habits by James Clear, which goes into a lot of depth around habits, which I think is a really useful book. So we'll make sure you guys have got the link to that. And that talks a lot about the kind of what's the cue, what's the kind of reason you do certain habits, but also how to break them, because quite often we'll try and break a habit without replacing it with a new one. And so quite often when you think about New Year's resolutions, that's why habits fail really regularly, because we're just trying to stop something. So unless we're trying to replace it with something, it's a lot harder. So actually knowing what you're trying to replace it with, and go back to that why, that's really important. So just to kind of finish off that habit piece in terms of books.
Perfect.
So final area then, which I think is one that's really relevant, or has always been really relevant for me being in the events industry, is about what we call our tendency. So there is a quiz online that you guys can do, and depending on how good you are at multitasking, after my comments earlier, you could do this now or go and have a look at it later. But there's a quiz called The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. And essentially what she does is she asks you a series of questions. It's like one of those personality tests. And she tells you, in essence, what kind of person you are in terms of meeting expectations. So are you the kind of person that meets external or meets outer expectations? And or are you the kind of person that meets inner expectations? And what we mean by that is, if you're the kind of person that meets outer expectations, if someone asks you to do something, you will do it. And if you meet inner expectations, you're the kind of person that says, well, if I say I'm going to do it, I'll do it. So if I say I'm going to get up and go for a run this morning, I'm going to get up and go for a run. Now, there's different combinations of these. So some of us might meet outer ones, but we might not meet inner. Some of us might always do what we say we're going to do personally, but maybe not be as strong about meeting outer expectations, for example. So it's a really good quiz. And one of the things I'm going to throw out there now, I appreciate you guys can't see all the options, but is we are very likely, and I'd love to know, so message me after this, I'd love to know what you are on the tendencies. I am what they call an obliger. And this I find in all of these workshops I do in the events industry, very typical within the events industry, okay? So there's a lot of us obligers in the industry, and that essentially means that we will meet outer expectations, but we are very unlikely to meet our inner expectations, okay? So what we will do is, our client asks us to do something, or a colleague asks us to do something, we will do it. There will be no question, we will get it done. And it'll put our stuff, like Neil was saying earlier, about his kind of well-being and going for runs and things, to the back burner, because we'll deliver for that client. And this is not surprising to say for the events industry. So I would love to hear if any of you are different as well, because there are different ones. We've got 4 different tendencies, but obliger is quite a common one in the events industry.
I am definitely 100% an obliger. Definitely, you get the job done for your client, and because we're usually, I guess, people who are involved in live events, whether you're on the venue side or you're on the event management side, you've just got to get the job done because it's immediate. There's no, that is the timescale. You've got to get things done while this event's on. You can't just change it and put it back. So I think you'll find that most of us are that kind of person. And then the things that involve those kind of go on the back burner, that can wait. But very good. So.
Yeah, so I want to know everybody, but my experience so far is that most events people the vast majority are obligers. And exactly that, it kind of makes sense because of what we do as a job. But obviously that can be a big issue, like we were talking about earlier, for our time management. So this is where knowing your tendency can be really, really helpful. So when you know what kind of person you are, and for the sake of kind of majority, let's go on the basis people are an obliger. So actually, if you are an obliger, I know if I'm going to say to myself, right, I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to go for a run, the likelihood is I'm probably not going to do that, because I might have worked slightly late the night before because I'm trying to get something out for a client, or a client's going to ask for an early morning call, whatever it is. Because it's something that I want to do for myself, that's either going to help my well-being or my time management or my development or whatever, I'm more likely to say no to myself because I'll put somebody else forward. There's a really easy way for us to make sure that we still do those things that are good for us as well, and that's called accountability. So making sure that actually we get somebody else involved so we can meet their expectations. So for example, if I want to go for a run, I'm far more likely to go for a run if I ask somebody else to come with me. So I will say to somebody, and this used to happen when back in the world where we had gyms, and I had a personal trainer a few years ago, and that was brilliant for me because I'm an obliger, that actually if I said I was going to be there at a certain time, that person was expecting me. So I couldn't not be there, because I would have felt so guilty if that person had been left there in the morning without me being there. So I managed to build in good habits for myself and good time management practices in other areas by building that accountability with other people. So think what you can do if you're an obliger to build in accountability across your team, family, friends, whoever it is, that actually if you say you're going to do something, you're going to start a new course, for example, or you're going to look for a new job, tell somebody about it. And of course, in my coaching and development hat, that's what you can tell a coach, and that could be your accountability partner. It can just as easily be a colleague or a friend. Think about who can you tell, who can then keep you on track, because then you're meeting their expectations, not just yours.
And social media, people use social media for it, don't they? They'll put on Facebook, I'm doing this challenge, here I am. And then it can actually inspire you by showing, like, I'm going to run 100 miles this month or whatever. And then, you're coming back and you're posting a picture and your map of it, every time you go for a run. And I do think stuff like that really keeps you honest, doesn't it, really? Rather than just committing to yourself and then going, oh, it doesn't really matter. Because I know I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of thinking, God, if I go out for a run, that's going to take me an hour with a shower and everything. I could have done an hour's worth of work. And I know it's just the wrong way to think sometimes. I just have to build that in and make myself accountable to going out for a run being as important as it is for doing that for my client. It's just as important.
Yeah. Absolutely. And to your point about running, I put something on LinkedIn a while ago about me going for a run, because I managed to motivate myself in the morning to go for a run when I hadn't planned on doing it. And I've had 3 clients in meetings since then asking me how my running's going. And so now I feel even more pressure, because to exactly your point about putting on social media, now my clients know that I'm doing this running. They keep asking me how I'm getting on with it. Well, I can't say I haven't run since I last spoke to them. So yeah,
well, there you go. Yeah. That's being accountable, isn't it? They're holding you accountable almost. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Laura, I know we've just got a couple of minutes left. Any last thoughts or any last takeaways for the guys?
So last one, a bit random in terms of order, but we refer to something called plan. So planning makes sense, obviously, when we talk about time management, but plan actually stands for prevent, limit, assess, and know. Okay, so prevent, limit, assess, and know. So when you're thinking about actual tasks that hit your desk, what can you prevent happening? And that could be also preventing it getting urgent if it's important. So quite often we end up doing all the urgent stuff and never get around to the important things, and those important things then become urgent. So how can you prevent something from taking up your time? How can you limit the amount of work that comes your way? So actually, can you give those boundaries to yourself, to your clients, to your colleagues about actually what I can do and when I can do it by? So actually, if you can wait till then I can give you this whole document. Otherwise, I can just give you the first part of it or the first initial ideas, whatever it is. Assessing if it's going to help you with your objectives. So exactly what we said before. Is it going to make the boat go faster? Are you going to achieve your objectives? Are you going to sell more? Whatever it is that your objectives are, is it going to assess whether or not it's going to help you? And remember the power of no. So no is a really important word. And we are people pleasers. As I've just said, in this industry, we love saying yes to people. It makes us feel good when we say yes. And of course we can do it. No problem. I'll get it to you tomorrow. Whatever it is they're saying. But actually, sometimes we need to say no. And sometimes that no is a really powerful no, because it means that we're then resetting expectations, but also we're probably going to be able to do a better job for them if they've got more time, if we've got more time, or if we do something in a different way. So remembering that we can say no. So yeah, prevent, limit, assess, and no when it comes to tasks on your desk.
That's amazing. And yeah, I totally agree with you about sometimes you have to say no to people, because and if you're working with a client, I think that always want you to say yes. You know, you need to question that really, because you do need to be able to say no to them sometimes if things aren't right, or you can't do it, or that time scale's not realistic or whatever. So easier said than done. But Laura, that has been absolutely amazing. I've got so many takeaways there and so many books now that I'm going to read. I'm going to get out running. I'm going to get out running now. I'm going to be accountable to you, Laura, for my run. I'm going to send a picture of me running every day. God,
and you can audio books whilst running, so you could combine the running and the reading. You see, you can get the audio books.
Exactly. There you go. But no, Laura, that's been absolutely amazing. On behalf of everybody watching, I'd like to say thank you very much, and keep doing what you're doing, because you do a brilliant job for the industry and for people. And anyone who knows Laura will know that's true. So thank you so much. Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back again. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Cool. So I'm not going to take up much of your time, guys. I know we've only got a few minutes left. Thank you once again to Laura for that, and for you guys for tuning in. Before we go, we have got the weekly lowdown with my friend Martin Fullard. We had a technical issue last week, but we've got this week's for sure. So here we go with this week's bite-sized news and positive event industry news from Marty.
Hello and welcome to the Delegate Wranglers Weekly Lowdown with Mash Media. I'm Martin Fullard. Now, agency Cheerful 21st has said that it's seen a 200% increase in incoming briefs compared to 12 months ago as clients shift their focus away from online back to live. Now, their strategy director Hannah Luffman's told Conference News this week that 2021 is shaping up to be a very busy year as buyers scale up their need for strategy-led events and experiences. Now, Luffman has said that there is a growing interest in domestic campaigns in the form of live events in Q3 and Q4 as some clients are shifting their programs back to live, although of course they want flexible terms and conditions. Now, on the other side of the coin, focusing on online events, if you needed any more evidence that things were picking up, Sammy Allen and Associates has reported 47% growth in revenue in the first quarter of 2021. Now, it testifies that there remains a demand for online events. The agency, whose revenues in 2020 were predominantly derived from virtual or hybrid events, now report that the entire business is reliant on them. So there you go, a clear change in the landscape. Now, sticking with the event technology scene, a year ago, not many of us had probably actually heard of Hopin, but after the year of the virtual event, so to speak, it has become an absolute giant. Now, Hopin raised about $570 million so far over the last year, and as such has been out there acquiring other businesses. In January, it bought StreamYard, and this week it's been busier still. It has acquired Streamable, a video technology company, and also another similar business called Jam. If you ever needed proof that virtual events are here to stay, then I certainly say that's it. But needless to say, we're going to need some talented event professionals to deliver all types of events regardless. And that's your weekly lowdown.
Thank you, Marty. Loving these weekly lowdown sessions that he's putting together. We're really enjoying putting them together for you guys. I hope you're enjoying them. Let us know if you are. So I would like to move on to what is coming up in the next few weeks. I think we can show that graphic. Here we go. So next So obviously Laura was here this Tuesday, and then on Thursday, which is in 2 days' time, we've got an onboarding for new members, which is going to be a webinar run by Diane. So anybody who's recently joined the Delegate Wranglers or would like a little refresher about all the various things, please tune in. You can actually register, so I'll put the link to how to do that later on for you guys. Then we're taking an Easter break, hooray, which is next week. So hopefully you guys are going to enjoy the lovely weather and having 6 people in the garden. Amazing. And then the following week, we are coming back on the DW Live Show with Rob Evely from Brightelm, who's going to be giving us a hybrid events masterclass. And that looks really interesting as well, you know, talking about sponsorship and actually what platforms and things to use as well. So really looking forward to that. So there you go, another show, and I'm only 4 minutes late. I'd like to say a big thank you to Dom and the team from Stream. Thank you guys, Callum and Ed as well. Also like to say thank you to Events Case for registration services, I forgot then, and also especially to our season sponsors, Eventer, for all the amazing support that they've given us with this season. Hope you guys have a lovely week, a lovely Easter, enjoy the sunshine, and we will see you in a couple of weeks, a mid-season break. Yep, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. We're back on the 13th with the DW Live Show. All the best.